All right, welcome everyone. Let's call the meeting to order and let me ask the staff, do we need to do a roll call? Is that something we should do?
Yes, thank you. Committee Member Oshley. Member Reed.
Present.
Member
Present.
Paul.
Yes, here.
Member DeCino. Member Daniels. Member Liziza Day.
Here.
Member Davenport.
Here.
Member Norris. Member Jameson. Vice Chair Mosier.
Here.
Chair Warden.
Here. All right, thank you. I am pulling up my agenda, but if you can help me out and tell me what the next item is on the agenda, we can
Yes, the flag salute.
the pledge. All right, let's stand and pledge. Where is it? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, liberty and justice for all. All right, I'm still pulling up my agenda, but I suspect public comments for items not on the agenda is probably next. Am I right?
Correct, and we do not have any speakers at this time.
All right, thank you for that. And then what is the next item on the agenda?
Item 1, Chief Executive Officer update.
All right, thank you. Greg, you're on.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. This is an update for the April 11th meeting. So just going to give you an update on our outreach efforts, as well as some updates on the programs that we've rolled out. First is to recap the board agenda from last month on March 28th. The board approved our feed-in tariff program, otherwise called our local solar program, and provided a regulatory update from our regulatory consultant or counsel, Keys and Fox. Part of that was to discuss the recent proposed decision by the PUC on the provider of last resort, oftentimes referred to as POLAR. And then we also had an update on our Solar Plus program. That's our Solar Plus battery program, to walk through the website portal to show what an applicant's experience would be through the portal that we have tied to our website. Just a little bit of detail on that feed-in tariff program. It was approved and we are live with that program. It allows for small energy microgrid to be established within our service territory of anywhere from 500,000 to 1 megawatt in size, relatively small. We offer payment through a PPA, power purchase agreement, for such a provider. And then there's an incentive of additional $15 per kilowatt hour for battery storage for those facilities. That has, as I mentioned, gone live. We are advertising it right now. So we hope to see if there'll be some local energy providers that are interested in this program, and keeping our fingers crossed that we will have some interest in that program. As I think I mentioned to the board and perhaps at the last CAC meeting, our expectation is that we will look and see and get feedback from local providers to see if there's any ways we might modify the program if there are energy developers who contact us and suggest revisions that might make it more palatable or more feasible for that local microgrid opportunity. Again, on the regulatory update, a key focus was on the PUC's recent proposed decision on the provider of last resort. This has been a long ongoing proceeding. The board is potentially expected to take action as early as this month at their April 18th meeting at the commission, the PUC. And while we did not get, and by we, I mean Cal CCA, CEA, SCCP, and other CCAs throughout the state did not get everything we had hoped for, there were some key wins, particularly with respect to the what's called the financial requirement, the amount that you're required to put on notice or for returning unbundled customers to the provider of last resort should a CCA go out of business. So the fiscal requirement had been just at 147,000 for each CCA. There is now, that is the minimum floor for that requirement, and there's now a higher amount based on your number of customer accounts. The good news for us, CEA, is that based on that formula that was in the proposed decision or is in the proposed decision, ours would remain at 147,000. So that's the good news. This is just a proposed decision at this point. So the board is expected to, the comments were due on April 8th. The IOUs are putting in their comments, as did we. There are also requirements for potential fiscal oversight based on the financial well-being of any load-serving entity, particularly CCAs. So there are some comments that we put in with respect to those requirements. They're very similar to what our line of credit requirements are, namely debt service coverage ratio amount, as well as a day's liquidity on hand requirement. We're fairly, it was a sort of a mixed bag for how the victories, if you will, that CCAs looked at with this proposed decision. And we'll see if it remains that way when the PUC takes final action on this. On the solar program website portal, again, we just walked through what the experience will be like for an applicant. I believe we have a bit of an update later, so I'll touch on that when we get to that part of the program, or the update rather. An update on the activities for enrollment and outreach for Vista and Oceanside. You see the statistics up there on the screen. We're doing quite well as we launch this month. So keep in mind that some of those launches are delayed, and throughout the month we will be enrolling those customers. You can see there that for the city of Oceanside, there's approximately a 2% opt-out rate or a 98% participation rate so far. With Vista, slightly less than that, about a 1.3 opt-out rate and a total of a 1.7% opt-out rate or a 98.3% participation rate. So that's all good news. We are continuing the outreach. We had a presentation to the City of Vista City Council this week. We've been participating in outreach efforts in various areas throughout both cities. We had a presentation to the Vista Chamber of Commerce Government Advisory Committee a couple weeks ago. We will be at the Vista Farmers Market this Saturday, and I want to thank those of you on the committee who have volunteered to provide yourselves to these outreach efforts. I think it's very helpful to staff as well as to the community to hear from members of the community. So although you're members of our Community Advisory Committee, you're also members of the community. I think it's important for fellow citizens in our service territory to hear from fellow citizens rather than staff or members of the board. I think that really helps. So thank you to those of you who have have already participated and who are planning to participate in some of these upcoming events. So if there's questions on that, I'll be happy to answer them if I can, or we have members of our staff, if I can't answer a question, who I'm sure would be able to.
All right, thank you, Greg. Questions on anything that Greg has brought up?
Yeah.
Yes, Dolores.
I just had a question about, it looked like the Oceanside, it looked like the Vista, if you can put that up, yeah. Oceanside with 16 opt-ups and then 237 in Vista. So there were a lot more opt-ups. Is that opt-up to 100%?
That is, and
And there were that many in Vista?
well, I think that is reflective of the city of Vista opting up its municipal accounts. So these are accounts, keep in mind. So they had most cities have a number of different meters or accounts. So
Right.
I'm guessing that's why that is
Oh.
such a high number.
That's great. Okay.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Yes, so it seemed like Oceanside opt-ups are a lot smaller than that opt-down, and Vista is opposite. So opt-ups is much higher than opt-down. Do we know why? Like maybe so there, if there is any strategy or marketing strategy or something that might work better with the Oceanside comparing with, to that Vista?
Thanks for the question. So opting up is something that is a challenge at best. I think our marketing strategy at this point is the program that we presented and have adopted, the Green Impact Champions program, to highlight those residents as well as business owners who have opted up, and so giving them some exposure and some press, if you will, so that could hopefully lead to others doing the same. It's something that we have discussed internally. For CCAs in general, it's a challenge to get people to opt up, particularly on the residential level. But we will be looking at other opportunities to market that Green Impact Champion program, as well as other ways to encourage people to opt up to 100%. So it is something that's very much on our radar screen.
Other questions? Yes, Tracy.
Yeah, thanks for the opt downs. Like, and I think I haven't seen that before, but I've seen the opt ups and opt outs. Do you have any feedback on the downs and the outs of why people went any direction?
The primary reason is cost. Of course, there's some cost savings to opt down. That is an important feature to many people, and so that's the primary feedback I think we've been getting, that if there's an option to provide some flexibility with rate payments or costs of energy. I think the good news is that it's a better option for us than opting out. And so what we're seeing is some people who want to take advantage of the opportunity to have a higher renewable content energy portfolio for the region, for their city, for them. And yet they are interested as well as trying to save a little bit of money while they do that. So I think that's the primary reason. I would encourage anybody, our key accounts program managers who've been dealing with the customers, if they have anything additional to add to. Okay, so I think I answered the question.
All right, other questions? A couple of questions for me, just a comment on that topic. I understand the economic reason for somebody to opt down, but if you opt out, your costs actually go up if you stick with SDG&E. And I think maybe that's more people that don't like us for whatever reason. I don't know.
I want to make a point of clarification. Appreciate the comment. The fact right now, so up until 2023, that was the case. Right now, because we have not, and I had a question from committee member Davenport earlier, we have not adjusted our rates since February of 2023. So they're the same rates. By virtue of SDG&E significantly reducing both its delivery and generation rates at the end of the year, excuse me, our default product as well as our 50% product are slightly above the generation costs of SDG&E right now. Now, I will say that SDG&E has already increased their rates once this year, that last month. And our understanding is, based on history, that those will likely be, there'll be other rate changes by SDG&E. So check with us at the end of the year. But as it stands right now, there is a slight premium, particularly in Vista, not particularly, but in Vista and Oceanside for our default product. It's about a $3 per month premium for the 75% carbon free, just on the generation side of the bill. Now, the good news is that because of the significance of the rate reduction, both on delivery and generation by SDG&E, everyone is paying less on their energy bills right now than they were last year. So the overall bill is reduced. We can't take full credit for that by any means, but that's the good news. Now, the reasons for this, they're numerous. There was potentially an overcharging of customers by SDG&E last year that resulted in this. I think a lot of you probably have seen a credit back on your energy bills. If you haven't seen it, you should see one soon. So whether or not that's a true savings is anyone's, I guess, conjecture. But at this point in time, though there's a slight premium on the generation side, everyone's bill is cheaper than it was.
All right, thank you for that clarification. It's more acceptable to me. Somebody who makes a decision to save $3, I can understand, and means we can get them back if we bring our rates back, where I believe our goal is to be 2% at least below SDG&E rates on an ongoing basis, correct?
That's our goal. Our stated goal at this point is to be competitive, have competitive rates. That's also language in the JPA, but that is a goal of 2% below.
All right, one other question I had is on,
I have a question. No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Paul.
No, you finish your question. I thought you were done. Okay.
well, I'm going to ask about something else. If you wanted to ask something about this.
No, just a comment I would like to do because I have the same experience. My neighbor asked me about this thing, hey, it's higher than that. Yeah, and the simple analogy that I use is my cable company. They gave me a discount as a trap to bring me in. And after 2 years, everything goes up and I can't get out anymore. So that's the analogy that I use to my neighbor. It's a
Right.
trap. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Don, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Greg, can you just briefly comment on the PCIA component of the bill for for Oceanside and Vista? And whether that's going to continue to go down every year in the future?
Yeah, at this point, I couldn't say for sure if it's going to go down every year. Typically, they do go down for any vintage that on an annual basis as you go through time. The idea is that they should decrease. However, that's not been the case in recent time. We've seen the PCIAs fluctuate pretty broadly. Our assumption is that over time, yes, Vista and Oceanside will see a PCIA that decreases over time. Right now, because of the market price of energy, the good news is that PCIAs are very low, by and large, on average, are low because of where SDG&E has contracted for that energy, for which they are now charging the departing customers because they're not using that energy. So it would be guesswork at this point to say if they will be going down, but they should be going down on average from year to year. It's a peculiar calculation that is sometimes maddening, but the basic answer is over time, the PCIA decreases until those contracts that they are charging you for that you're not using the energy are wound down.
All right, thanks for that. The other question I wanted to ask was about the provider of last resort. Is it still SDG&E's position that they want to get out of the power procurement business and just be the distributor and transmitter of it? And where do they stand on that? And where would we as CEA be if they were not in the power business at all?
Yeah, so appreciate the question. Right now, in the polar proceeding, the IOU, whatever IOU you belong to, in this case SDG&E, is the provider of last resort. That said, SDG&E's on record and still currently maintains that they are winding down their generation business and want to be wholly dedicated to delivery. So that part of your question, the answer is yes, that is SDG&E's position. Once this phase of this decision, this rulemaking proceeding is wrapped up, we will go into a third phase, which is to identify who that provider of last resort should be. So at this point, it's presumed to be the IOU. It's going to lead into quite an interesting discussion as to who in our area would be the provider of last resort. Based on their comments and their being on record as wanting to get out of the generation business, we assume that SDG&E in that phase 3 will advocate for another party to be the provider of last resort. That's what we assume. But you know what they say about assumptions. So,
Right.
But at this point in the proceeding, all the IOUs are the assumed provider of last resort until we get to the phase 3 of the proceeding.
And for the IOUs to get out from under that, can the PUC make that decision, or would it require special legislation for them to get out?
My understanding is that through this proceeding, that will be determined. This phase 3 of this proceeding, that will be determined, and the PUC has the ability to make that determination.
All right. Will that make us nervous if we look around the room and we're the only one left? We're by default become the provider of last resort?
Well, we'll be entering into discussions with our neighbors to the south, San Diego Community Power, and they obviously have the lion's share of customer accounts in the San Diego or SDG&E territory. So whether or not that would be something that we'd look at, it remains to be seen. But I would say it's unlikely that CEA as itself, an entity, would be that provider of last resort, but that remains to be seen.
All right, thank you. Yes.
That brings me to the question, what about Edison, right? Would they partner with Edison? I mean, it's just to the north of us. What are their plans? Do we know it? They're not getting out of generation, are they?
They haven't stated that, no. That's not to my knowledge. They have not stated that. I think SDG&E is the only IOU that has made that sort of emphatic and written statement. SoCal Edison, again, is one of the IOUs that at this point for those territories is the provider of last resort. But again, phase 3 proceeding is going to be interesting to see whether or not that will be the case for that territory.
All right, thanks for that comprehensive review. I think it's very valuable to all of us to be kept up on this. There's a lot of moving parts in the world that we're traveling in. But I think absent other questions, we're ready to move on to the next agenda item. And we have a presentation on or a PowerPoint at least. And so Greg, back to you.
Thank you, Chair. This is the update on the Solar Plus battery storage, or Solar Plus. Just a reminder, the program provides a $0 upfront cost for a solar and battery facility on single-family resident homes. There is no upfront credit requirement or credit application. That is intended to open the door to a wider variety of applicants. The applicants who take advantage of this program would be able to enjoy a constant rate for their energy over the course of the year. We have partnered with Participate Energy to be the installer and the counterparty for a PPA where the Clean Energy Alliance would receive the renewable energy credit for those systems. And in exchange for which that customer would be given that flat rate of 14.5 cents per kilowatt hour over the course of the year. The applicants also get use of the battery for events such as a public safety power shutoff or just a power outage, as well as the use of the battery for peak demand times to further curtail the use of energy and save energy costs. So that's how the program generally works. And next slide, we had a soft launch, if you will, last month, where the idea here is to work with a handful of applicants to see how the interface with the website portal comes to fruition and how it can be potentially improved from a customer friendly standpoint, customer service standpoint. We have 8 applications in the queue right now. We're working with those applicants. And it is a live application. We just haven't really gone out to market it vigorously because we wanted to work out how we can best respond to customer needs. And this is giving us really good experience with the questions that come up, with the needs of the applicants, and how we can better address that through a complete rollout of the program. So again, our customer service team, our key accounts program managers are working with these applicants, and it is, I will have to say, it's somewhat labor intensive to do some of this, provide this guidance. So we're trying to address how we can make this a more seamless and less, I guess, administrative support requirement from CEA, but we're excited with the prospects already. We're excited with the applicants who have jumped in and without even a full sale marketing approach. So that's an update on that program, and happy to answer any questions. And both, I believe, Rob and Caitlin are here as well if they wanted to step in and provide some feedback.
All right, thanks for that. Questions, comments on this? Let's start down here with Paige and we'll come back to you guys.
Greg, I'm assuming that when the go out to the customer, that they do a cost analysis to see, return on investment or whatever for each one, kind of tailor it for each customer, is that correct?
Yeah, but so the application project process has that information, and we take that information. There is, Rob, I don't know that we specifically identify a cost save, or sorry, a cost recovery or cost benefit analysis. We do provide a generalized cost savings. Now, keep in mind, this isn't a system that they are buying. They are paying for the battery on a monthly basis, and they're paying a reduced energy rate. Now, there is a buyback option in the agreement that allows an applicant to buy the system at a future date. However, it's not meant to be this is how much you're going to save on purchasing the equipment. It's basically you can save on your overall energy rates over time.
Oh, I'm assuming, so are they looking at their green button data or not? They don't tailor it individually then, is that what?
They tailor the
Oh, they do,
the
okay.
facility to their energy use, and
Okay.
yes, that gets sized appropriately for their energy use through the portal.
So I'm assuming that there's got to be a monthly cost savings for the customer. I mean,
There is, and Rob, is that provided by staff or Tesla, or is it just something that the applicants do on their own?
Yes, they actually, when they do the application, part of the process is that the green button data utility API is put into the system, and what Tesla provides is here's what your projected savings are based on this system side.
okay, thank you.
All right. Mo, did you have one? After. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, as I understand it, it's a single monthly cost basically for the battery. And it seems odd to me that, if they're building in systems of different sizes for these people, that they'd have just a single cost, the same cost for everybody. How does that feed into our figures?
Well, so the cost is for the battery. That monthly cost is for the battery. Now, applicants do have the ability, based on their energy use and needs, to add a battery to the system. And then there's an added cost for that amount. So it's assumed that a single battery is sufficient to provide most applicants with battery support. And that's the actual, I guess, capital cost that you're paying for, is that battery. So that's why it's the same across all applicants. It's just that paying for that specific amenity, if you will.
Greg, I know it's only a week that this application process is going on. Just a breakdown on those 8, are they all commercial, residential, or combo?
This is just for residential, this
Residential,
program, so
got
they're
it.
all residential.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Other questions? Don?
Okay, I think I know the answer to this, but auto solar installations need new roofs put on or roof modifications. Does Participate Energy cover that cost?
So one of the first things that is done is an assessment of the roof. And an applicant will be told early on in the process if the roof is adequate for the facility. There's not, as far as I'm aware, and Rob can correct me if I'm wrong, there's not a cost inclusion for the roof repairs. However, applicants can take the steps to do that, to get back in the queue for if there's upgrades to the roof that are needed. There may be some minor improvements to the roof, but not a wholesale cost allocation for roof repair.
Yes, go ahead.
So I think Mo's question was answered. I had that question, who's applying for these? And it sounds like residential, but are they single-family detached homes? And my second part of that is, which city? Are they all from one city, or are they from different cities, the applicants?
At this point, as far as I'm aware, they're from different cities.
Okay, good.
And to back up to your question, the prior question, there is an allocation that you can up to $5,000 for repairs to the roof. However, that depending on what amount you choose, is required for your particular application, that would adjust your rate. So it would go from 14.5% or 14.5 cents per kilowatt hour. It would increase slightly. So your fixed rate of energy would escalate to accommodate for that construction work.
Other questions, comments? A couple from me. One, I'm sorry, did you have one, Tracy?
Yeah, I have a similar system right now, and actually, since we've had sun for the last couple weeks off and on, we're basically on the battery till we go to bed at night at 10 or 11 o'clock. So I think it's just a really good idea of, getting that across to people.
All right, thanks. My basic question, and I think I know the answer, but I want to ask it anyway. Are there any qualifications? You don't have to income qualify for this program, right? Anybody can apply.
That's correct.
And will the program at some point be able to accommodate people that have bidirectional capability in their cars that want to use their car battery instead of the Tesla battery? Or is the Tesla battery an essential part of the revenue stream for the outfits doing this?
I'm not sure I know how to answer the question, but I will say the second part, yes, the battery is an essential part of this program. In fact, we are looking at ways to expand the program to be battery only. As far as the bidirectional component, that's not something that I'm aware of in terms of how this would work. I think it could still be a part of the program, but I don't think it's going to change the cost for the applicant.
Okay. Anything else? All right, I think we're ready to move on to the next item. Thank you, Greg, for that update.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Real
Kevin.
quick, I think how that would change the cost is they wouldn't need to purchase the battery. The battery would be in their car. They would just purchase the solar. I mean, they would just have the solar installed. They wouldn't need to purchase the battery.
Well, at this
That'd be
point,
huge.
this is a solar plus battery storage program, so we would have to modify the program.
Yeah.
We're looking at modifying it to be battery only. We're not looking to modify it to be solar only.
Only. Okay.
Right. Now, I forgot to advance the slides, but I think we already discussed some of this, that these are some of the key takeaways so far that I think that customers do appreciate the personal attention we're giving them. And it also prepares them for really what you need to do as part of this application is to have a SDG online account. And we're finding that many people don't know that or don't have visibility into that. So that's a helpful part of the program just in and of itself. And we are hopeful that once we launch we are launching now, that we'll see Vista and Oceanside customers come online for this option. And as I mentioned, we are researching the battery only option as part of the program.
Thank you. This is a program we've been working on for more than a year. It's exciting. It's really a good thing. And if there's any role that we as a CAC can play to help, we're probably not the right ones to go out and interface with the customers. Your staff has to do that. But when you do a non-soft real launch, if there's ways that we can help market it or with outreach, please let us know and we'll be glad to
Absolutely.
do that.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Mitchell, we're up for the most exciting part of the meeting. Everybody is waiting with bated breath to hear about the Brown Act.
Thank you, Chair Warden. Good afternoon, everybody. Elizabeth Mitchell. I'm the Assistant General Counsel for CEA, and I'm pleased and excited to give you your yearly update on the Brown Act and the requirements that you need to comply with as a member. So our topics today, and I'm actually going to go as fast as I can. That's my goal, because what I'm trying to get you to do is to spark your memory, spark questions. But you've all heard this before and you've all had training before. So I also don't want to bore you. So we're going to go through them quickly, and I'll pause when there are questions or some key things like that came up at the last meeting that I wanted to go over. So I wanted to start with the Brown Act today, and we're going to go back to the basics about what a meeting is. And this is really important for an organization like this committee because you're doing something a little different than like the city council does. You're engaging with the public in a different way. And it's maybe not as obvious when a meeting might occur. So you are a legislative body, so you're covered by the Brown Act. A meeting and if you have a meeting, that means it has to be open to the public. Here, noticed, and have the public be able to come in and talk to you. So what exactly is a meeting? It's any congregation of 7 of you, but there's an exception. I've outlined this in particular bullet form because there's exceptions to each one of these bullets, and the law kind of goes on in run-on sentence fashion. So we'll go over that later. At the same time and place, we've got a lot of exceptions to that one, which because it includes teleconferencing locations, right? We used to teleconference before. To hear, discuss, or deliberate upon anything with the subject matter jurisdiction of this agency. So you have to think, okay, what is CAC's subject matter jurisdiction? Well, it could be anything that's in CEA's subject matter jurisdiction, because you as a body are a community advisory committee. What does that mean? That means that your delegated tasks from the CEA board, because you're members of the community, to give them advice. What's that advice on? On anything they delegate to you. So if it's anything related to CEA, it's conceivably within your subject matter jurisdiction. So you should be thinking about whether it's going to be a meeting if you talk about it. So exceptions to meetings, individual contexts, community meetings, subcommittee meetings where they're on an ad hoc basis. That's why I have repeatedly in the past tried to make sure we fall within ad hoc subcommittees so that you can continue to meet not in a public agendized fashion when you're doing subcommittee work, so that you can get some things done in between meetings. So part of keeping it an ad hoc subcommittee is having a very limited task that you go out for a specific time, do it, report back, and then the ad hoc committee dissolves. You can't have a standing committee being one that meets all the time like your body does. That turns it into a legislative body under the Brown Act. If you came to observe other public meetings, that wouldn't be a problem. Okay, Brown Act violations. So you can't have an informal meeting. It has to be a formal meeting. You also can't have series of meetings. So if you had maybe one of your less than a quorum, so less than 7 of you are on your subcommittees, and then you had one subcommittee member go and talk to another subcommittee, right? That's a serial meeting. Or you could do it one by one, like the old telephone game, right? Where one committee member talks to another committee member, talks to another. And then as soon as you get to a quorum, that is a violation of the Brown Act. You can also have it what's called a hub and spoke meeting, and that would occur if most often it occurs with a very enthusiastic member of the public who wants to go and talk to each member of a committee or legislative body about an issue. Maybe they want to start a solar program in their jurisdiction. So if they talk to someone and then they talk to someone else and they talk to someone else and you get up to 7 of you, then that's going to be a violation. The nice thing about having so many of you is those types of situations are not as likely to occur as in like a city council that has 5 members. But I would still say you still want to have the same best practices in terms of how you deal with those, because it still could happen, because you don't know where that person is going to go next. You have no control over what other people say. You only have control over what you do. So the best practice in this area is to listen. Listen. And that's it. You're taking feedback from the community, you're bringing it back to the body. Or there might be specific tasks that you're asked to do, like help staff with at resource fairs, right? Well, we already have designated a certain number of people to do that at a specific time. So the likelihood that you're going to have a quorum speaking to the same member of the public is very small. You also don't want to state your opinions about things that are going to come before the body, although that's not likely to happen here since you're an advisory committee. It's not like you're reviewing applications or anything like that. Okay, here's another topic that tends to come up about in this body that I've seen, and I, reel you in when this happens, is going off topic. So one of the great things about you guys is you have great ideas in this sphere and you're very enthusiastic. That's why we love you. However, the Brown Act says that you can only talk about things that are on the agenda. So you might have a brand new great idea and we'll have to say, you know what, we'll put that on a future agenda. We can't talk about it today. We've got outside of the context of what has been noticed. And so we'll have to talk about it a different day. So here's another area with a relatively new law that is particularly challenging for a body like you, and that has to do with how you interact on social media platforms. This is also an exception to the majority requirement. So here it only takes 2 members to violate the Brown Act. So, and there's no exceptions. It's not like the other parts of the Brown Act where you could have different sorts of rules. So if you have a direct response to any other member's post, doesn't matter if that's like any kind of direct response, that's going to be a violation. So the bright line rule there for you is don't respond to other committee members' posts online, and be very careful about posting. So I said before that it includes all kinds of responses. That includes like a thumbs up or a smiley face or, any of that sort of thing, which makes sense, right? You're indicating that you're approving of what somebody else is saying. But it is my favorite law because it says that an emoji is a discussion. And at least we have, a bright line rule. Before this, there was debate about whether emojis were included in the law. So this did at least provide us some great clarity. So I said this the last meeting, but I'm going to repeat it again. So my recommendation for this body with respect to social media contact is that you either don't do it or that you designate one person to be the one who is responding. And if that's something that the body is interested in, maybe we can talk to staff about agendizing that in the future. And that's just the kind of what I've found with commissions and committees as a workable way to do it. Otherwise, you kind of don't know who's on first. So here's another exception, remote teleconferencing rules under the Brown Act. This is the exception to you have to meet at the same place to have it be a meeting. That's actually not true. I don't even know why there's so many exceptions to that. It has to be in the same place to be a meeting. But the exceptions swallow the rule here. So there are a variety of different teleconferencing rules. And there's one that's existed for a really long time that people really sort of never used. It's that you could call in, on a spider phone. If you had to be out for a conference somewhere and you posted the agenda for the meeting in the hotel conference room, and you posted your address of the hotel conference room on the agenda, and we said that you were participating remotely, you could do that because theoretically someone could go to that hotel and talk to you in person. It has to do with everybody's First Amendment right to be heard by their government. So that's where it comes from. So that's the oldest rule. It's been around forever. Now there are new rules that don't require you to post your location. The ones that aren't in effect anymore were the remote teleconferencing we did during COVID. And then that was some learning happened from the state legislature. And then they passed the new teleconferencing rules, which have gone into effect and are still in effect now. And there's 2 different categories. You have to figure out where you are. And there's lots and lots of procedural requirements. See all this procedure. I only point to that in case you want to do this. Please contact Kaylin as soon as possible to let her know that you're sick or you have an emergency and you'd like to participate remotely, because then we can follow all those procedures that I just skimmed through. And Kaylin will send a copy of these slides afterwards so you can refer to them. So the things you need to worry about in this situation, or not worry, but be aware of, is there 2 buckets of reasons that you could participate remotely. One is just cause and one is emergency circumstances, and they have different rules under the law. So just cause has more ability to do it, but fewer instances in which you can call upon it. You're ill, you need to give care to a family member, or you're traveling on business. You can only use it twice per year, and you have to ask permission as soon as you find out that you're going to have one of these requirements kick in. So again, something comes up, just reach out to me or Kaylin or Greg as soon as you can. Emergency circumstances are a different cause. That's essentially only a physical or medical emergency that prevents you from attending. It can't be used for more than 3 consecutive months or 20% of regular meetings in the calendar year. I will say that all of these rules, and remember how many of them there were here, they're all changing this year. The legislature currently has 3 bills pending that change teleconferencing requirements. So I just say, keep it in the back of your mind, reach out. The rule might change, but it is available. So violations of the Brown Act, which you guys are never going to do, are serious. Criminal consequences, fines, intense media attention. You don't want your name in the newspaper for a bad reason. Also wanted to remind you, this came up, I think, at the last meeting as well, is that your emails related to the subject matter jurisdiction of this body are going to be public records, which means they're disclosable in their full content as is to the public, most likely. So I just say, just be aware of that, right? You're all professionals and you're going to be professional in your emails, and shouldn't be a problem, but it will also potentially be out there, in the public. Anybody can read any of your emails related to things you do as a member of this committee. So practical things about that, I touched on it before, and I know we had at least one committee member reach out to Kaylin about how do I set up another email. So you have 2 choices here when a PRA request comes in. You can either know in the back of your mind that you only did your CEA business on a dedicated CEA email, or you can know that you kind of intermingled things. You still technically have to search both places, but if you've never ever sent any CEA emails on your personal account, you know that search is going to come up with nothing, and it's not going to be labor intensive. As opposed to if it's on your CEA one, it's much easier to search, and you're going to narrow down the time that you're spending. And it will be you during the search if this comes up. That's how the court has balanced your individual privacy rights against the public's right to know what the government is doing. You should have already filed your Form 700 this year. They were due. So, Kaylin, everybody file on time. Yay, you guys get gold stars. The reason that you have Form 700s is to tell the public and to remind yourselves of potential conflicts of interest. So if it's on your Form 700 and then it comes up in one of these meetings, you probably have a conflict of interest. So that's something just to keep in mind. There's available resources if you have questions when you're filling them out. So talking about conflicts of interest, they're governed by a different rule, the Political Reform Act generally, and there are different types of conflicts of interest. I'm going to go through the categories. The purpose here is just to keep you thinking. It doesn't come up a lot in this committee, so when it doesn't come up a lot, you kind of need to be reminded more, right? If it was coming up all the time, you would know the rule very well. So the types of disqualification are your source of income, gifts that you've received in the last 12 months, any business entity that you own or have an investment in, or real property interests. So there's dollar limitations on each of these figures. If a decision or a recommendation that comes before this body involves any one of those 5 categories, what that means is you need to start asking questions. Give me a call, send me an email, and we'll go through whether you have. I only mentioned that there's new rules about elected officials because a lot of times our commissions and committees in local governmental agencies are full of our like next batch of elected officials. So just be aware there's more laws that apply to elected. I want to go into one category of economic interest in particular to show you how it works. It's one of the more common ones, and it also gives me a chance to explain how the rules in every category are different, and even the rules within the category are different, which is why all I want you to know is that you have to ask questions instead of memorizing the rule. So real property conflicts, maybe this would come up if you were asked to provide the board with recommendations on sites to locate EV charging programs. So you have a site where this EV charging program is going to be. And the question the law asks is whether there's a foreseeable material financial impact on you from the decision before you. So with real property, it used to be, it was called the 500-foot rule. Well, now people still refer to that, but it has 3 different categories and also depends on whether you have a leasehold or an ownership interest. I'm going to go over the ownership rules. So if you own property, you have to figure out where you are from the site. There are 3 different rules. If you're within 500 feet, that's one rule. You're within 500 feet, you're presumed to have a conflict. It's a rebuttable presumption, but you're presumed to have had to have a material financial impact on you, and so you're disqualified. The other easy category to remember is it's over 1,000 feet away. If you're over 1,000 feet away from the site, you're presumed not to have a conflict, but that can also be rebutted with clear and convincing evidence that it would impact somehow. And then there's a longer test if you're in like the middle, if you're the meat of the sandwich, the donut, the jelly filling, then you're going to go through this test under 18702.2 and ask yourself, will the decision before me, which is whether to, in this instance, recommend that a program site be located between 500 and 1,000 feet of my home that I own, okay? Will that decision impact the developmental potential of your parcel, the income producing potential parcel of your parcel, the highest and best use, character of your parcel by altering traffic levels, intensity of use, parking noise, privacy levels, air quality, or impact the market value of your property? If it would impact any one of those things, then you would have a conflict and you couldn't participate. So it's very these rules are very fact intensive. They depend on what decision is before you. For example, the decision about whether to recommend a single EV charging station might be very different than like hosting like a huge bank of them, right? You can imagine that if you're 505 feet away from a massive, charging station, maybe that is going to impact traffic levels around your house. And so maybe you decide you have a conflict. Leasehold interests have a different rule. If you do decide that you do have a conflict, the procedure, I'll walk you through it at the time, but you basically disclose it and say that you won't be participating. This training does not take the place of your AB 1234 training, which you have to take every 2 years. It's still available online, which is good news. The FPPC has been threatening to take it offline. And I also do in-person trainings from Orange County all the way through San Diego County. So if you want to do in-person and you're up, send me an email and I can tell you when the next one's going to be. And that's the end for today. Does anybody have questions? We'll go this way in order.
Yeah, my question is about you have IRAs and things like that, and I know there's Tesla in there. I have a financial advisor who takes care of all that. Do I still need to disclose that? Do I need to ask my financial advisor? How much does the stock actually, make every year?
Yes. So, for example, owning Tesla stock. You own more than $2,000 worth of Tesla stock, it has to be disclosed on your Form 700. And remember, if I told you it had to be disclosed on your Form 700, you might have a conflict. So we should probably talk separately about what decisions you can and can't participate in if you own Tesla stock.
My question is, I know a couple months back, I got an email from contractor or something wanting to market something to us. I don't know if they sent it to all members. I forwarded it to Barbara and she said she would take care of it. But that kind of sounds like your hub and spoke of emails, because I'm thinking they probably sent it to every member at the same time.
So you don't really have to worry about emails sent that are blasted to you. You need to worry about responses, right? So you did exactly the right thing. You sent it to Barbara. What you shouldn't do is if an email is sent from this contractor to the whole body, you don't reply all, right? That's where your Brown Act violation is going to. And see who is next.
Okay, I have just for clarification, our subcommittees don't need an agenda, is that correct?
They are currently, we'll take public comment in just a minute, sir. They don't need an agenda based on how they're acting right now.
Okay. And then I had another question. I know another organization that I'm involved with. We talk to every single council member about the same topic at one point. And hearing you and thinking that that's not okay, but it was my understanding it's okay. It's okay as long as we don't tell them what we've talked to the other council member and they don't talk to the other council. Is that correct?
That's correct. So you as an individual or an organization, you're talking that's individual contacts with your council members. You're saying, this is a great program, do this, right? And you talk to them like, this is a great program, do this. You don't say, council member A told me that
Okay.
it was a good idea, right? And also I tell the council members, don't give your opinion to the groups about whether you support the program or not, just listen to what they have to say.
Okay.
Because if you don't give your opinion, then they can't share it with someone else.
Okay, thank you.
Member Lesage Day?
Thank you. Just let me give you a quick scenario, and then you tell me, and if not, we can talk sidebar later on. Basically, if you said that they are meeting in a, say, a lobby of hotel, but they're also broadcasting via Zoom. So we have to let people know, yeah,
So like
we're,
here,
yeah, we're here in Hotel X lobby. But say on that day I have emergency and I'm not be able to be in that lobby, but I'm in a lobby of another hotel. The people can hear me. I'm not in a room.
you would not be able to participate in the meeting in that event because
I will not be.
no, because it would have been one of the requirements of the Brown Act that we probably take for granted because, nowadays we get emailed agendas is they're actually posted in places, right?
I
They're
see.
physically posted out here, wherever the meeting is in the city hall or the library, there's places that the legislative body chooses to physically post the agenda as well as it's required to post it online.
Okay.
So for this particular rule, that posting has to occur in all of those ways, plus the physical location where you're going to be here, the hotel. So if
I
that changes, but you can't participate remotely, we just have you not participate remote.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, but maybe, there's an emergency circumstance
Yeah.
where we could do it another way, but
Oh,
that's,
okay.
Keep going here. Don, did you have a question first? Well, let's go Kevin first.
So real
Keep going
quick,
around.
the AB 1234, the ethics
Yes.
training. So if we've taken training on, if we're on a different panel or a different board, does that, we just need to take it once and you can use it, or place of work. I have to take it at place of work too. Is that specific to?
it's a state law. It's, if you have accredited AB 1234 training with your certificate that says on this date you took it, that's good for all public agencies for 2 years.
2 years. Thank you.
Dolores.
Oh, Don, did you have? No. Yeah, I have a question about social media, and I know we've kind of discussed some of this before. But when you say one person, if we wanted to designate one person to be on social media, to respond, you know, kind of on behalf of,
Per platform.
or, yeah, it is, one person per platform, right?
That would be my suggestion.
Okay, so like one person can be on Facebook, one could, because Nextdoor is a little bit different, a different animal in that it is kind of broken up roughly by region. So like I'm in Del Mar, I can't post something that someone in Oceanside is going to see. So,
So the law is not clear in that area. It just says social media platform. So Nextdoor is a social media platform. I would take a conservative approach and say one person. Is that how a court is going to interpret it later? I don't know, because you're right. As a practical matter, it's different than Facebook,
yeah,
but we
Right.
don't have guidance on that. And
okay,
when you can take a conservative approach and be sure that you're not violating an ethics rule, that's what I'm going to always advise be done.
okay, all right, thanks.
Sure.
All right, anything else? If not, a couple questions from me. One for you, Elizabeth and Greg. This social media issue of appointing one person, do you think that's a good idea for us to do? Or should we just more, if social media things come up, forward them to you and let you and your staff address them?
Thank you, Chair. I think, I think initially, if there's something that comes up, by all means, send it our way and we can try to address it. Now, if there are active members or members of this committee that are active on social media, I think we should at least have that identified should there be some interaction. So perhaps maybe the committee spend some time on identifying who that might be. But I think initially it would be great if we knew what kind of interaction was, or what question was being asked, or what request was being made, so that we could at least let you know that we'll handle it and take it from there. So I'd say a two-pronged approach, but initially I think it would be great for us to know until we have an idea of who those representatives might be.
All right, let me suggest we put
I
this on the
totally-
agenda.
Hold on,
Go
I
ahead.
totally agree with that, but I also want to add that there are a couple of issues that come into play when you start interacting on social media. So as counsel, I would just recommend that this body not interact on social media with the public or each other. It's a really bright line rule, easy to follow. If you are going to interact, you have to start remembering some certain things, which, for example, any one member of this committee cannot speak for the body. So that gets weird. Like, how are you interacting with someone? You know, so you have to have permission to say what you're going to say, unless you're doing it as a general member of the public, which means you're not identifying yourself as a member of this committee. So if there is interest in having that involvement, I think we should have it as more of a detailed discussion about how this body wants to do it and how it can interact with staff.
Yeah, that was going to be my suggestion, that we put it on a future agenda and discuss it. It seems to me if somebody is on social media and you're talking with your friends and other social media activists about where you're going to dinner and how you cut your lawn, and then all of a sudden somebody says, boy, can you believe what CEA did? It's awkward if all of a sudden you have to go dark and you can't comment at all. And I'm not sure how to handle that. And it isn't on the agenda for today, but so let's.
So an individual response, like in that scenario, if you're, talking with I don't know, I'm not on social media. I follow my own advice. So
I stay away from it
I
myself.
can't tell you, but they're on different platforms. There's ability to have groups, right? So I think Twitter is one of them, where if you say to a whole group, but then you can direct message someone. Yes, sir, we'll be right with you for your public comment. Okay. Then you could direct message that person so that nobody else is seeing it, right? So then that falls under the direct contact. So it's not like somebody else in your group then saw the message, and that would be okay.
All right, thanks. It's been a good discussion. Let's have it on the agenda, and maybe we'll end up doing nothing, but maybe not. Any more questions before we go to public comment? Sir, you've been very
thank
patient.
you.
The floor is yours.
How y'all doing today? My name is Marquise Deshaun Woody Maybon, and I'm trying to figure out why y'all police officers kidnapped me for 3 days and they didn't have me in the system. I have the documents in my backpack, and one shows Oceanside and the other shows San Diego. So I'm trying to figure out why the police kidnapped me. They didn't feed me for 3 days and they had me drinking toilet water. You feel me? And I was in the library right now, and they just kicked me out the library for no reason. I'm trying to figure out why. What's going on? You feel me?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. We're the Clean Energy Alliance Advisory Committee, so that's not in our field of jurisdiction,
Okay.
but we're in the Oceanside City Hall. City council members and the mayor's offices are right upstairs and the city clerk is over that way.
Okay.
I would recommend you take your concerns to them.
And I
'cause they can
did,
deal with
and
it.
they sent me here. They don't want to send me to this meeting.
Well, it's not within our jurisdiction to deal with that.
I don't know why they sent me here. They told me to go downstairs and go to the meeting.
Uh,
Cause I'm trying to
yeah,
figure out,
Go ahead,
I'm trying to figure out why they, could
Let me
they,
respond to you, sir. The body that, of the city that you need to address,
all right, that's all.
city council, you need to go every 2 weeks. They will meet here on Wednesday.
So much.
Yeah, just let me finish. Let me finish. Every 2 weeks, they meet here in this chamber on Wednesdays. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mo. Thank you. Yes, Elizabeth.
If I can be recognized again to make some closing remarks, there is a topic area that I forgot to cover. And so this was a perfect opportunity to give you an example of one of the things that very infrequently comes up in front of this committee, and that's how to handle public comment. So public comment is the right, it's a constitutional right for the public to come and address their local government. The Brown Act, however, requires that things that you discuss be on the agenda. So it puts more city council members than this body, because we don't get a lot of public comment in a not so enviable position of having members of the public come and have a problem. They're coming with a problem. They want a solution, and you can't talk to them about it. There are some limited exceptions, but the best thing to do is to, just say, thank you for your comment, and then ask staff to, talk to the person after the meeting. Because then you don't, a brief response like Chair Warden said, go up to the chambers, that would have been fine. But as soon as you start getting into a back and forth, it's like, when does a brief response become a violation of the Brown Act, right? So it's that's all I have for today, and thank you.
Thank you very much. And one final question for you, Elizabeth and Greg. What is your preferred method that if people do have questions about any of this material, conflict of interest, financial disclosure, or Brown Act, do you want them to contact you directly, or should they go through Greg?
If you email both of us, then we can decide amongst ourselves, Rochambeau, who gets to answer.
Okay, good answer. And I think we want anybody that has a question or concern to get it answered. But on the other hand, there are 14 of us and it's a billable episode. If we all bomb them with questions, I'm not sure we want to do that. So please copy them both if you do have a question. All right, I think we have completed that topic. Thank you again. We'll have a test shortly to see how much of it's stuck. And next up is the adjournment, right? Anybody got anything else? Greg, anything else from you? All right, anybody got anything they would like to suggest for the agenda for next time? Yes?
No, I just had one final question. You talked about the 1664 training. And I'm not sure I've ever gotten that. And I wonder, is there a link you could send us as to where that is?
It's AB 1234 training.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And Kaylin will send out it was earlier in this slide. There's a link, but you can also go to fppc.com and search AB 1234.
I'll send a link to the website in the email with these slides attached.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, Tracy.
Could we get a discussion, I guess, as part of this group or organization being set up to go to 100% energy? Could we get some kind of a briefing on what those regulations are of what the timing is for that to go to 100% green? And those requirements, because I'm on that one ad hoc committee and we're trying to, we'd like to know more of that subject, I think, and I think it would be good for the general group.
We'd be happy to do that. Yes.
Okay.
Chair Warden, I
Yes.
did just remember that you're in luck. We do have an in-person training occurring on Monday at Vista Irrigation District and at 9 a.m. And my partner Jenna Burns is giving that. I usually give it, but she's going to give it. So I will also have Kaylin include in the email, and if anybody needs it. So that's being given to that body, but if anybody else is light on their training, you can go and we'll certify you on Monday.
Thank you. That'd be an easy way to satisfy that. And I understand they're serving eggs Benedicts there at courtesy of
No,
Elizabeth's firm. So before we all leave, let me just ask, is everybody, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just a clarification, I need a clarification. I understand AB 1234 ethics training can cover public office, any office in California. How about Form 700?
No, so your Form 700 has to be, I filed 8 of them this year. So you have to file it with each one of your agencies.
It's good
Well-
fun. Yes, did you have something, Kevin? Okay, then I want to just check in. Is everybody working on their ad hoc committees? Anybody having any problems that we can help you with?
My question actually is related to what you just brought up. Let me see if I can turn it on. I have to hold my finger, it doesn't. Finger is too. Okay, there we go. Killian was very nice to send us this with all the different, thank you again. It's very clear. Now, my question is, what does a trigger to start working on this thing? What kind of things will, Mr. Chairman, will come that I said, okay, Mo, now you got to work on this? What is triggering?
I think the easiest way is we'll designate you as the ad hoc temporary chairman and you call a meeting. That's really all it takes. Somebody to step forward and
I am a
Follow-
chair of one of them. I'm a chair of one of them. That's what I'm saying is like today, I said, what happens if Dwight asks me, Mo, what's the latest? I just sent to the people on my group. I said, hey, if you guys have anything, let me know, then I can bring it up to the people. But what triggers for me to be actively inviting and having a meeting within my group?
I think, and Elizabeth, correct me if I get any of this wrong, in your subcommittee, because you're
Uh-huh.
not subject to the Brown Act, you can call people, send them an email, say, let's have a meeting, and you coordinate the schedule and you meet. Then when you've got something to report, you bring it back to this full group and report it to us as a full group in a Brown Act compliant way. So if there are any committees that you haven't even selected a chairperson yet, somebody just step forward and call a meeting and get it started. And if you do need help, Greg and his staff are here. As the chair of CAC, I'm here to help you too.
And if you have something to report, your subcommittee does work and then wants to report something, contact Kaylin to put it on the agenda so that you can, you report it the next time.
Yeah, can we have like a standing agenda item for just status updates from the subcommittees so that each time we can go around the table and ask how people are doing? And I also wanted to say thank you to Kaylin for sending out the information, which is very helpful. And the final thing for me is, do we have enough people signed up for the community outreach events? I know that was sent around. Or are we still looking for people? Should we twist arms right here before we all go home?
I can answer some of your questions. So as of now, we do have review of the ad hoc subcommittee work on the agenda for the October meeting. If a subcommittee would like to present at either the June or the August meeting sooner than that, just send me an email and we can work on getting that agendized. But until then, we will have reports at the October meeting from each of those subcommittees.
Okay, what I'm suggesting is that we have it just on each agenda so that I can look around and a way to prod people and find out whether they're having a problem or not, rather than wait till October and find out
Sure.
somebody's
So
in
you would
trouble.
like a standing
Yeah.
ad hoc subcommittee
Yeah.
discussion at each meeting? Okay.
And how about for the community outreach events? Do we still need to recruit some more people?
I believe we are okay, but if anybody would like to join, it's not too late. You're welcome to go add your name to the list or just stop by any of the events that we will be at.
Yeah, and for those of you that haven't done it, it's actually pretty fun to do it. And there's typically a staff person there, so don't be intimidated that you're going to get all kinds of questions you can't answer because they will back you up. So in the absence of seeing any other hands up, I think we are done. Thanks everybody for coming and we are adjourned.
Okay.